best friend, Jasmine Rose Archibald, and her laughter, how she would fling back her head and laugh. I remember the concerts we used to have in Olson Hall, where teachers and students would perform.
Well, welcome back to the Hot Seat Ardenne Reunion 2019, Atlanta, Georgia, July 19 to 21. We're here talking to another exciting Ardenne personality, Dr. Dahlia McDaniel Dickson, and we were discussing so much about Dahlia's involvement in HIV/AIDS, providing medicines, and of course, her own activism in seeking to help and deal with people with AIDS and managing the stigma in a country like Jamaica, where we know that's a particular issue. How difficult, though, Dahlia, has that been for you to manage the stereotypes around people with HIV/AIDS and bringing light to ignorance? And
yes, it's very difficult in the society in which we live, because you have to remember that many Jamaicans are homophobic, and HIV/AIDS is regarded as a homosexual disease, a gay disease largely. And so that is something that I had to navigate in this journey. First of all, I must tell you that in the early part of my journey with clients with HIV, there were many patients that I lost. And why did I lose these patients? Because it was back in 1996, 97, it was $1,000 per month, the equivalent of $1,000 per month for the treatment of HIV. So there were so many people who heard about doctors and so on, heard about my service, because I was purchasing the medication and putting a very tiny markup on it in order to make it more affordable. But even at $1,000 US, the average person couldn't have came to me, and this was about 40,000 Jamaican dollars at the time for 1 month's supply. So people would come to me now and they were very excited about this treatment, and I would tell them that it's $40,000, and they would say, but they earn like $5,000 a week. And so they would rush to the bank and come back with 15,000, to buy the medication. I would say, no, this can't help you. And therefore, they wouldn't have that continuity. And so you basically have to tell them about vitamins, meditation, and just to go and live your best life, because there was no treatment that they could afford at the time. So many of the clients, really and truly, they died. They died, Mark. And within a few years, there was the developments in medication. We got NNRTIs, protease inhibitors, and all those other fancy medications coming on stream. Yes, they were still expensive, but then there came Clinton Foundation, which made it go down from $40,000 to like $8,000. And then there was the World Bank and other people became involved, to the point where now it's practically free in Jamaica. And so one of the things as well was that I don't discriminate against persons who are gay, and I had to be that way in order to counsel people who are gay and to encourage them. And so I think maybe a lot of Jamaicans might have that impression about me that I am gay. I don't know, or that I have HIV for that matter. Mm-hmm. But I one case in point, I got a call one night at about maybe 1 a.m. from a client of mine who was he purchased medication from me, but he called me for counseling. He wanted to know, he had a new partner, and he had a male partner, and he wanted to know how he could make love to his partner without giving him HIV. What are the different techniques he could use in the various stages of his sexual activity? And so I actually went through this with him, told him what to do, the various things that he could do to make love to his male partner without transmitting HIV/AIDS to him. Of course, he was most grateful the following day because he said to me that he had actually spoken to his doctor about this like the week before, and she ran him away and told him that, look here, you have HIV already. Why your business with sex, you know, and so on. And so he was very grateful to me. I gave this example in an interview on radio to bring home the point that in as much as it might seem yucky to some people, or to say, then why did you get involved with this? How could you ever tell the man to do something like that, you know? I had to separate my personal feelings about this from my professional responsibility to tell this man how to prevent another person from getting the HIV that he has. And so when it went public now on the air, even my own staff members at work said, Dr. Mac, boy, I respected you, you know, but you really lose me with that one. You're wrong, Dr. Mac, you're wrong. And so I'm just telling you that example to show you that it's really an upward climb to really reach people who are regarded as being, you know, stigmatized.
Are attitudes changing in Jamaica?
I think so, because I can see openly gay people walking around. I mean, you can look at some people and sort of know, and people don't trouble them. We don't reach the point of San Francisco yet, or even New York City, where men can walk around holding hands with men. We haven't reached that point yet. Well, safely walk around with men. But I think Jamaicans are becoming more tolerant, and I think it's because successive governments, Portia Simpson Miller and Andrew Holness, have been getting a little bit more enlightened about this thing and realizing the way that the world is going, and they're trying to sort of preach tolerance, you know, tolerance.
How has this changed you? How has this work changed Dahlia McDaniel?
I have grown so much. I've grown tremendously, and I have, the counseling itself has changed me so much. Before I went into HIV work, I had unprotected sex. And I'm saying that is the basis mark on which I was able to be non-judgmental. If you look into it, you know, any one of us who had unprotected sex, even with your husband or your wife, could possibly have gotten HIV/AIDS. I have most married women who come to me at my pharmacy and who are getting their medications for HIV for the first time. When they were diagnosed, it's not like they said that when the doctor said to them, I'm very sorry to tell you that your test is positive. It's not as if these married women said, I knew that. Most of them fainted. They burst out into tears. They were dismayed. They would never, ever have thought it, never believe that they could ever have HIV/AIDS, which they acquired from either a previous partner, in some cases, or from their current husband. And so it really, but for the grace of God, Mark, there go I. Could be any one of us. Once you have ever had unprotected sex without a condom, could be you. And then there are some who haven't had sex without a condom. They got it through blood transfusions, or they had an accident or something, So I have become so much more non-judgmental, as a person, and trying to live very vicariously through others. Like I see myself in a lot of my patients, I feel for them. I really feel that I have that empathy that is required to counsel people and to treat them and to encourage them. I remember this patient of mine. She was 18 when I met her in 1999. She had been raped as a teenager years before, like when she was like 14 or so. And of course, back then, they were trying to prevent pregnancy and other STIs and so on. So nobody thought about the fact that she could have gotten HIV. And even then, there was no prevention for HIV. There is now, by the way, I should just let you know, in case you've been raped or anybody who has been raped, there is medication that you can take, which is the same therapy that you give to patients with HIV now, if you can take it within 72 hours of the event, the rape, then, and you take it for a month, you won't get HIV. Okay?
Really?
Really. So patients who have been raped in Jamaica, they're getting that now. So I'm just saying to you that there was nothing like that at the time. So years later now, she came down with the flu. She was getting the flu every week and whatever. And then they diagnosed her with HIV. And this lady would call me almost every night crying and saying, what do I do now? Do I just sit down and wait on death to come? And it was really, I'd use music and use all kinds of ways to encourage her to go on. She's now married to a non-HIV positive man. They have a son. She has gone on to do 2 degrees, and she is a force to be reckoned with in her field of work. And this is 20 years later. She has lived her dream. I mean, gotten a mortgage. She's, you know, her child is growing, and, you know, so you can live with HIV.
You find this fulfilling, don't you? This work.
Pardon?
You find all of this work quite fulfilling. I can
Very
see.
fulfilling.
So
Very.
Let me ask you, what's next? Is politics in the offing? Do you see yourself?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm actually a court-appointed mediator. I do mediation. I've done the training, so I do mediation at the Dispute Resolution Foundation, and that's a side of myself that I am also discovering. So, you know, in a violent Jamaica, it's very, I feel like I'm giving back as well. You know, once a month or so, I will go and help to resolve disputes between disputants, people who are at war, who have chopped up each other and all that. And, you know, I find that very fulfilling. I don't think there are any more degrees in the making at all. I'm a mother now. I have 2 stores to manage downtown, plus a doctor's practice upstairs. I have 2 households to run. I think what's for me now, Mark, is to be the best wife and mother that I can be. It's really a new experience for me as motherhood. I came into motherhood at age 45. You know, I'm 51 and a quarter. And so I'm learning as I go along, and it's very fulfilling. So remember, I have another maybe 15 years of, you know, active motherhood, meaning that I really have to guide and to manage this child. And so that is a job in itself.
Indeed. No more children, no more adoptions?
No more adoptions at all. My husband and I feel that we really need to spend a lot of time with each other, considering that we are older parents. You know, it does take a lot of time and effort in our later years now. So we want to spend more time with one another as well.
I'm sure, like me and many of the other Ardenites now watching, you from time to time reflect on your days at Ardenne, which was a really formative period for all of us.
Yes, yes.
When you look at where you are now and that period of development, what do you attribute to Ardenne for your success and where you are now?
I think that, first of all, it might sound very, very basic to you, but I love the idea that Ardenne was a co-educational high school. I think that it gave me that level of comfort with the opposite sex that lasts me even now, where I get along so well with guys, you know, and it started at Ardenne to, you know, that, you know, boys are just like, you know, they're just like girls too, you know, we can flex, you know. So I attribute that basic, you know, aspect of it to Ardenne. I mean, I find myself to be very different from girls who went to an all-girls school, or guys, you know, I do. Additionally, I think that the Christian, the fact that Ardenne is a Christian school, it really helps. Because guess what? In times of trouble, you go back to those hymns. You go back to all of those lessons that maybe at the time from Reverend Grant, you know, you might not have taken them so seriously, but you go back to them. life lessons, as it were. You're looking back at it now and you're realizing how important those lessons were. There is a common saying that the older I get, the smarter my mother or father becomes. And what it means to me is that back in those days, the things those little nuggets, of knowledge that we got, really help us in how we live our lives today and how we impart those same things to our children too. I look back at Ardenne as a time when life was really beautiful in terms of there wasn't much, I didn't really have a lot to worry about. And as Reverend Glenn Archer told me, that those were the best years of my life. I didn't, didn't have to think about where lunch money was coming from in terms of it would come from your father or your mother, usually. And, your needs were sort of somebody else's problem, the needs that you have. But life gets better. I think that life really still gets better. But I enjoyed immensely my years at Ardenne. And my only regret is that I didn't do a sport. Know that I never knew I was going to be this tall. But I think I would have done very well in maybe, athletics, running, volleyball even, netball, something. But I never did any sport. And to this day, people see me and ask me, apart from asking me how tall I am, they'd ask, so what do you play? What sport do you do? Nothing, So, but just back to your question about Ardenne, I think the Christian upbringing is what resonates most with me in terms of how I live my life and the lessons that I learned there, Yeah.
Any fond memories that you could think of?
I remember my best friend Jasmine Rose Archibald and her laughter, how she would fling back her head and laugh. I remember the concerts we used to have in Olson Hall, where teachers and students would perform. And it was like, fundraising of some sort. And teachers would go up and sing, and students would go up and we would do fashion shows and, dancing. Oh my gosh, Jacqueline Myrie, and they would do disco dancing. And I remember all of those experiences, fun days. I remember my friends. I remember the days of Jolly Korea with Caroline and Magali and Jackie Myrie and Janet and Pansy. And I remember those days of the camaraderie and just feeling like I belonged. I was one of them, and these are my people, I remember those days.
And if there's a parting word, I suppose our interview today would share with your people from Ardenne, what would that word be? What would that word of advice, encouragement? You encourage a lot of people every day. Encourage us.
I would say that regardless of what each of us is going through, that I'd say that life gets better. And it's just as simple as that. Life does get better. And that's pretty much all I could say. I remember back in the 70s, Michael Manley would start his speeches by saying, the word is love.
Better must come.
Yes. Better must come. Life gets better, guys. Life gets better. We just have to stick it out, hang on in there, and just keep trying. And that's all I have to say.
Daniel Dickson, thank you so much for being with us on the hot seat today and for being so candid, for sharing your perspectives on life, some of you very deeply personal things.
Yes.
Just want to thank you for being so open and so candid. You are always like that at school. And I think you're in a really good place, blessing and helping so many people across Jamaica and no doubt beyond the shores of Jamaica. So I look forward to seeing you in Atlanta, July.
Yes, I'll be there. And just to say, Mark, that you honor me, Garfield, you honor me by allowing me to express myself in this interview. Thank you very, very much. I am truly honored. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And God bless you. And God bless all Ardenites everywhere. See you in Atlanta. And for the